Greetings, this is Tyler of Infinite Dragon, and today I want to talk about trust, what it is, and how it gets used. Before I get started, I want to share that trust, like any other topic I speak about, is navigated and determined by the depth of the relationship that one has with themselves. That said, let us begin. Simply, trust is the expectation placed on self or another to behave a certain way, often associated with non-acceptance. Let's start with a simple scenario. I set and establish boundaries for myself that I condone only being treated kindly. Note that I use the word condone. Condone meaning I approve of this type of behavior. Let's then say that I have a friend and this person treats me kindly, and I get used to them treating me kindly. But one day this person treats me not so kindly. I can now choose one of two options. I can accept the experience, or I cannot accept the experience. If I cannot accept the experience, then I may become upset to a large or small degree. This is determined by how much I value the particular subject matter. For example, if the expectation was to place one's coat on a coat rack and my friend repeatedly didn't do that, then I might experience annoyance. However, if the same friend took money from me without asking, this might be called a betrayal, associated with a more severe reaction, including anger. Regardless of the depth of value, the action of non-acceptance to the expectation of the friend to behave a certain way is still the same. Now, if I am in a more unconditionally loving state of awareness of myself, then regardless of my condoning a behavior, I can still accept it. Because here's the crux of the matter. When I say that I trust, and thus I expect certain behaviors, that is the same as saying I am not in allowance. I am not in allowance of myself, thus I'm not in allowance of others, and ultimately I am not in allowance of the universe. Another way of saying it is that trust is ultimately the limited human arguing with the unlimited universe. Let's look at it from another point of view. But let's look through the lens of an intimate relationship or partnership. Let's say that there is a couple and one of them cheats on the other. We will call the cheating person, person 1, and the non-cheating person, person 2. Cheating is almost always viewed as a betrayal of trust. A betrayal of the expectation to behave according to the established or perhaps not established rules of the relationship. Again, this is very subjective to the relationship because perhaps both parties agree to these rules or experiences they are out to have. However, it must be noted that the depth of honesty one applies to the relationship with self will determine how effectively these agreed upon rules and expectations can be upheld. For example, perhaps person 1 didn't realize that they don't want to be in a long-term committed relationship that strives for balance. But because person 1 was motivated by external factors, they thought they were ready, when in fact they were not ready for that level of commitment. This led to person 1's attention being drawn elsewhere rather than on person 2. There may be reasons for this, but the underlying content is that person 1's attention went elsewhere. Their excitement reflected in their behavior shows that it lies in the experience of having a partner and then having that attention stray from that partner. In this way, we are observing the behavior just as it shows, dehumanized, you could say. This is okay. This is okay because this is what it is. All is the same oneself, and all parts of self are okay. This is what it means to fully love oneself. Now, just because objectively and universally this may be okay, doesn't mean that person 2 condones this behavior. And given that we are looking through the lens of acceptance with this example, person 2 will then be observing the situation as not condoning while also accepting. So, person 2 doesn't ignore their feelings, but observes and accepts them and the situation for what they are in the now. Keep in mind, I am describing an ideal situation. Most times, things may not be as instant or perhaps they may be, but the process operates just the same. So, person 2 accepts the situation as one that is not condoned by their values, definitions, and boundaries. Again, the depth and particulars of the situation will determine the ultimate outcome. For example, person 2 accepting the situation can create space away from person 1, or move towards person 1 to investigate the motivations of why person 1's excitement was drawn away. Effectively, relationship dynamics. A person of this type of flow will often be in possession of some of the perspectives of the structures of existence as it applies to humanity, including Everything experienced is created from self by being the vibration of what they are experiencing. Being one's most authentic light as best they are able will equally attract the same as who they are. Along these lines, so to speak, that which is meant for you will find you. This can bring unexpected experiences to help balance self to fulfill one's preferences and desires. And that all is the same one self in infinite various forms. Note there need not always be a specific awareness of these details to intuitively act upon them. The idea here, with acceptance, is that person 2 is an allowance that person 1's behavior cannot be influenced by them. Only the user can choose to act and move. With person 2, there is an acknowledgement and an awareness of who they are, confidently, boldly, and grounded in such a manner that person 2 can, in some capacity, see that they created the experience of person 1 being drawn away. This is also an opportunity for person 2 to look at themselves and learn about how their vibration is attracting such an experience. Perhaps person 2 was less authentic when they met person 1, but then raised their vibration, effectively creating a gap. In this example, it could mean that person 2 may have outgrown the vibration that person 1 is at, which led to person 1's attention being drawn away from person 2 due to miscommunications or changes in values and so on, to name a few. Person 1's straying could be a natural clearing of person 2's space, of that which no longer serves them. Person 2 being in the awareness of that which is meant for you will find you, may acknowledge this themselves, as well as that if person 1's attention is drawn away, why should person 2 fight that? If person 2 isn't what person 1 needs to fulfill their experience and excitement, why would person 2 want to keep around that which doesn't want to be around? Another way of saying this is, if you truly love something, set it free, or in this case, someone. A phrase I am fond of is, let people do what they want, and they will show you what they prefer. If when you let people do what they want and they don't choose you, why would you try to keep something around that doesn't want you? Now, there may be reasons why people would stay, mostly for the education, but most are unaware of this at a conscious level. Personally, I don't want people around me that don't want me, so I continue to cultivate a more loving relationship with myself so that I attract those that do prefer me. In this way, with this complete allowance of self and others, there is no concept of trust. There is no need of it. You do not need to trust that someone that prefers you will stay, because if they prefer you, that means they prefer your vibration. This means that your vibration attracted this other person as a reflection of the preference you have for yourself and vice versa. In other words, you attract what you are. Self-love attracting those that love you, a reflection of self. Now, the only constant is change, and each of us, as a human perspective goes, is an individual, fractal self point of view. Nobody as a human will ever have your experience through the view of your eyes. In this way, viewed from this one perspective, each of us is alone. And in this isolation, everything and everyone we ever humanly experience is attracted to us, and humanly, everything and everyone will leave us eventually. This may be by circumstances of living life, or it could be by transitioning out of the human perspective. Either way, everyone that comes into our lives will eventually leave. Thus, an ultimate human ideal is the total allowance of ourselves, our values, beliefs, and boundaries that, in a balanced and harmonious way, serves to have the experiences we prefer. This then allows for a deeper appreciation of the moment. This then also doesn't place an expectation of any kind on anything to stay, because all will go with change. Therefore, the only thing we can truly trust/expect is that all will change. I will share an example of an ideal relationship as it can apply to two people. Mind you, this can have infinite variations. I'm only using two people for the simplicity of painting a picture. So, two people come together because they attract one another by vibrating at a similar rate. They do not need the definition of marriage to stay together. Their vibrations brought and keep them together for as long as the vibration matches. They could get married if they determine it has value for them, but let's say that at this time, the need for the experience of what the human binding of marriage in the USA, as I'm in the USA, will provide for them, is not yet needed or required. Their excitement's based upon explicit honesty with their beliefs, definitions, and values, keeps them wanting to stay in the experience of each other. Each's excitement lies in their explicit, honest exploration of self, and in turn, the explicit and honest exploration of self with each other. They recognize that their excitement may venture into different avenues. They recognize the infinite potential within themselves as much as their moment allows, but also with each other. This promotes the ability to be very close, while at the same time giving each other their space and freedom. This says to each other, "For now, we are each other's excitement, and in this example, we would like to continue to explore that excitement for as long as we can take it, until we can take it no further, whatever that turns out to be." Did you catch that? This is part of Bashar's formula for staying in the flow of your excitement, or as I refer to it, staying in the most harmonious flow of yourself as a human. I will go over this formula now from Bashar's website. There are 5 steps. Step 1. Act on your excitement, your passion, whatever is most exciting to you in the moment. Do this every moment that you can. Step 2. Do this to the best of your ability. Take it as far as you can go until you cannot take it any further. Step 3. Act on your excitement/passion with absolutely no insistence, assumption, or expectation of what the outcome should be. Step 4. Choose to remain in a positive state regardless of what happens. And Step 5. Constantly investigate your belief systems. Release and replace the unpreferred beliefs, fear-based beliefs, and the beliefs not in alignment with who you prefer to be. So you see, when speaking about trust in relation to this flow, trust is not needed because the behavior of trust is actually counter to this flow. Trust again being the expectation of behavior. We do not need to trust ourselves to behave a certain way if we are aware that wherever our excitement takes us is where we are supposed to be. Now, this doesn't mean go out and break laws and commit crimes. All of this talk of flow is about doing so within the parameters of the structures and systems that you have opted into. So, if there are laws in your environment, for most of us there are, then the aforementioned steps are designed to be done within the confines of those laws as designated by the user experiencing them. So if there are laws in your environment, then the aforementioned steps are designed to be done within the confines of those laws as designed by the user experiencing them. That said, it is letting go of this expectation of trust that allows us to be more in alignment with our excitement and the built-in control of our individual themes that are already working in favor of that which we prefer. It is counterintuitive and a bit of a paradox, but it is the paradox that reflects the balance, just the same as an opposing and contradictory math equation is balanced, and thus is correct. Lastly, just because trust fundamentally lives in a space of expectation doesn't mean that it is void of value. Most things we experience as humans have their value specifically as the experience of lack itself. Thus, in many situations, the value to be had is the value of lack that expectations can provide. And in the examples I previously spoke about, these lackful expectations can teach us about lackful expectations in how they serve to provide us with experiences we may not prefer. This then ultimately guides us into the experiences we do prefer. This turns into an everything is needed until it is not sort of situation. So to recap, trust is the expectation of behavior. Fundamentally, trust is an activity of non-acceptance/non-allowance. And this is because when in a state of acceptance and allowance, the concept of trust does not apply or even exist, since you do not need to trust anything to allow and accept the moment. And that just because the root of trust is non-acceptance doesn't mean that it cannot be used in balance or have value. Take everything as best works for you and your balance. As is often the case with humans, the application of these things is a process. Give yourself grace and patience to meet yourself and others where they are, as there will always be another opportunity. I hope this was useful. Until next time, this is Tyler of Infinite Dragon.